All right. These two races we covered extensively last night, two county executive races that got quite a bit of attention. Ed Mangano beat Tom Suozzi. It was a rematch from the same race 4 years ago where he beat Mr. Suozzi by less than 400 votes. This time, spread, as you can see, much bigger. To Westchester we go, where surprise victory 4 years ago for Rob Astorino. Well, the margin much more comfortable this time around, where he beat Noam Bramson by 10 points. And again, in Westchester, just like in New Jersey, there is a solid Democratic registration advantage. Let's start in Westchester, Richard. Turnout was actually better than people thought. So you can't even blame it that nobody showed up to the polls.
Oh, yes, you can. The turnout was way down from what the registration reflects.
Okay, but it was more than 4 years ago. More people voted yet last night than they did 4 years ago.
We're better than Catastrophe 1, and Catastrophe 2 is no measure of success.
Well,
Look,
is that an indictment on the candidate and the message?
No. Off-year elections are strange. It's one of the reasons Democrats don't come out. Republicans do. Generally speaking. And that's why, it's one of the reasons Christie did relatively well. The 2012 electorate didn't come out in New Jersey in 2013. But that's not the point. Noam Bramson was a very bright, talented guy. He'd done a good job as mayor. And he fundamentally misconceived what this election was about. He turned it into a congressional contest about guns, abortion rights, and the Tea Party. That resonates brilliantly with Democrats. And if he was trying to rally troops who were going to come out to vote, he would have won. They didn't come out to vote. And therefore, he was speaking to an electorate that was home asleep on the couch. Astorino, for better or worse.
Why couldn't he turn his base out? Why couldn't if he's playing to his base, and you're saying the base was sleeping on the sofa?
He was uninspiring.
A county executive race does not turn out your base. A president does. A governor does. That's the disadvantage. That's one of the reasons why older, more conservative Republican voters come out in an off year, and younger,
Rob Astorino
more
did a couple
diverse
of interesting things. I think by
evening.
personality, he's an easy guy to like. But more than that, and you saw it a little bit with the optics last night, he went to the black churches in the inner cities. And even if they weren't going to vote for him in big numbers, they stayed home and they didn't turn out for Noam. And, you know, fair is fair. He figured out in this county, what's the two words that people hate most? Property taxes, okay? Same thing we're going to talk about in Long Island in a second. And I might think the math was more than a little fuzzy how he got there, and I might think that this was an embarrassment, the whole thing that went on with the federal, the housing discrimination lawsuit. At the end of the day, people just didn't want the property taxes.
I've sat in a set before, and you had this conversation a number of times. Rob is a leader. They like his leadership. They like where the county's going. That's what it comes down to. And Noam was uninspiring. He couldn't get a campaign together that had a message early on that resonated with the voters. And Rob got out in front and defined him, and Noam never caught back up.
I think you may have hit on something there. I mean, you put the two of them next to each other on television, and Astorino outclasses Bramson. For low information voters, it just, they look completely different. One looks like during the debates, there was one county executive on stage, and it wasn't Noam Bramson.
Is it as simple as that, Tom?
Look at that picture right there.
Unfortunately, yes. There was just never a case made to replace the current occupant at the county executive's chair. Bottom line. No, and he does look like a county executive that might be on his way, I don't know about this, but might be on his way to the governor's mansion. He looks that way.
Whether that's an indictment or not on the roster for Republicans in New York or not, I've heard from a lot of folks, they think that Rob's got probably, of who we're talking about, the best chance at statewide.
The Cuomo people have always viewed him as the most likely opponent.
Ed
but
Cox
he's got
Chris Christie, a Chris Christie in waiting.
He's got to jettison his Tea Party background. He seems willing to do that. Mm-hmm. That gun thing was a mistake politically. Put aside merits, and he knows it. He's smart. He can adapt, but moving from AA to the major leagues will take more than just a pretty face.
Is he ready? Is he ready to make that leap?
That's not for me to decide. The Democrats.
Are you turning down the chance to give an opinion?
No. When I don't have an opinion, I say I don't have an opinion. You should learn from that.
If Rob wanted to run, he would be a great candidate. He's traveled the state before. He knows the issues. He does a lot with the county executives across the state when he meets with them and figures out what their issues are.
This one more puzzling to me than Westchester last night. Ed Mangano.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If you dropped in from another planet.
He's not really sorry.
I'm not at all. To say, just like when Dominic goes, no offense, but okay, but seriously, when a financial board has to take over your finances, when you have the unmitigated disaster that was the Coliseum, the Lighthouse Project, the Islanders waving as they head out to Brooklyn, what is the compelling argument that you should keep your job?
These are issues that have been going on for a number of years prior to his arrival. And the county...
He was there for a year and a half when the county said, when the Financial Control Board said, give us the keys
that wasn't
here.
what he
You
had
can't
done.
be
It wasn't based on what he had done in the past year and a half. It was the history in that
Can
county.
you explain the
that
joke
got
of the
them there.
assessments, the
So
energy tax? I can go on and on. What's the argument why the guy got elected?
For many years, there's been problems in Nassau County on their property taxes. There is actually business models that have real estate guys taking the real estate along the border in Suffolk County and say, move over here and come work here, and we will give you incentives for the IDA, from the IDA, and don't go to Nassau County because the property taxes are too high. That's for years.
This is hard to believe, but as to this saying there's a historical problem, he's right, and Tom Suozzi was part of that problem. So you had the guy who caused the problem running against the guy who didn't do anything about it.
But don't you think, Richard, I think this is a little bit, Dom and I, we talked about this last night. People don't forget when people think, it's like a guy leaves his girlfriend because he wants to, step up here to somebody else, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work out. You can't go back to the girlfriend. Suozzi, I think he overestimated his appeal a few years back when he ran for statewide office. It didn't work too well. You can't then come back to say Nassau County, never mind, I still loved you most.
Yeah, sure
I
you
think
can.
that
That's really nothing to do with it. And
He's right two times in a row.
Stop now, Obi. Yeah.
If Richard's right 2 times in a row, I don't want to hear what the third one is. But no, Suozzi had a history in that county, and they liked what Mangano was doing to fix the history. That's what it was. They believe he's putting things back on the right track. Let's look at the three. Let's look at three. See, I didn't want a third one, and I didn't get it.
Two is all you get.
But no, let's look at it. You mentioned turnout here in Westchester. In New York City, turnout was the lowest it's been since women had the right to vote. Okay? The electorate in New York City wanted a change from Bloomberg. In Nassau and Westchester, they liked what they had. They didn't want to change. That's what that was about.
Real quick, I want to get to a couple ballot issues. We won't get to all of them, but one of them, casinos here. It went through, and major victory, Richard, for the governor. He put a lot of political capital into this. And as you've been talking about, to be fair to you, probably before everybody else is, what he's got on his agenda next year, he needed to get this through now.
No question that this was a big deal for him politically and on the merits. It lost upstate. It won because of Queens, Nassau, Suffolk, and Staten Island. That may tell you something. It lost in areas that are going to get casinos upstate.
That to me was the most startling thing.
Because I don't think anybody.
Why?
I don't think anybody believes that it's going to do anything near what the proponents said. I think what the ultimate argument they won is they're leaving the state to do what they might. We might as well keep them home. And that, I think, is what won.
Don't forget, the casinos do provide jobs. And any area you talk about, there's also a multiplier effect. Everybody supplies.
Have you been
to
Atlantic
casinos.
City?
Yeah. Sure. I used to work in the industry.
When you worked there were a lot of people there. Okay, now trust me.
No, Atlantic City's always been small. What happens is it's a whole other conversation.
Online gaming is coming. That's a whole other debate. My only point was, for the governor, he needed to get this thing through. He got it through.
He got his way on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, he did.
He beat the judges on the retirement age thing.
Yep.
So, if you want to look at muscle, he had a good day. Whether it's strategically in his interest is going to be a much more interesting.
Jersey yesterday on the minimum wage, guys, it wasn't just that they raised it $1, but they adjusted it to inflation. And I think people are going to be talking about this beyond, just the today story, the day after. This is important.
It did better than Christie.
It did. No, it did. We were tracking that last night. So some people voted for Christie and then also voted for this as well. It plays. It also shows you. I think that actually says a lot about Christie, that he played better than the issues that he represents in a lot of ways. It's really the force of his personality. Voters don't agree with him on the issues, but they like him enough to vote for governor.
Go back to the de Blasio-Cuomo conflict about increased spending and increased taxes. It turns out that the austerity model, cut taxes, cut spending, keep wages down, that doesn't work politically if people are given a real opportunity to do it. This country is sick and tired of those economics, and that's going to be the issue in 2016 when Hillary Clinton becomes president.
Why are the congressional seats all moving down south where there's lower taxes and more jobs?
Because they're no unions, and because they pay nothing in salaries. Because they're impoverishing their workers.
That is not the case at all, Richard. There's more job growth. There's more job growth, and businesses want to locate where the taxes
they don't have to
are
pay
less.
salaries.
But Obi, I'm telling you, I'm wrong in a lot of things.
You're wrong. Wait, can we save this tape?
but I am
Save this tape.
Shush,
Go to
shush.
commercial.
Let's
Go to
save that.
commercial.
I'm telling you, I'm dead right on this one. If that number told you one thing, and there was 2 or 3 other places, by the way, that raised minimum wage also. People get it where they didn't before want to be lumped into lower middle or low class. More and more people get, that could be me now, that they did, I'm telling you, at any
Are
point
you
in my
trying to say
lifetime.
it's a news story that a
I'm-
Democratic state
No,
voted to,
no.
to raise
I'm
the minimum
telling
wage?
you, Republicans at their own peril underestimate, just like they did with the shutdown and what they did with the debt default. More importantly, when they hit pocketbook issues on people who all of a sudden now say, you know what, I take a job for $8.25 where I would have laughed at it, 10, 15 years ago. If they double down and attack the lower class here, it's going to bite them next year. And if
They're
Democrats
not
can
attacking
craft
the
stuff
lower
like
class.
this,
They are
they're going
trying
to
to
win.
make sure the men and women that need jobs get jobs,
They're
have a
cutting
chance
food
for
stamps.
advancement.
Yeah.
They're against minimum wage.
I'm telling
Come
you.
on, man.
Well, we're talking minimum wage. Now,
It,
about
it
food
isn't
stamps.
bleeding hearts
Where
anymore.
are we going with this, Richard?
No, it's not bleeding heart anymore when you talk food stamps, or you talk about school
Working
lunches,
people.
or you talk about that kind of stuff, aid to pregnant women. It's going to be dangerous if Republicans make that part of the Tea Party
Don't
platform.
tell them. Let them go down that road.
You agree with me, don't
Yeah,
you?
I absolutely
All
agree
right.
with you. But don't tell
So
them.
you got one, and I got 2
Yeah,
tonight.
exactly.
I didn't want the
so
third
far
one. You
we're
got
ahead
the third
here.
one.
All right, we will take a quick break. When we come back, OB's favorite topic of the night, that had to do with Capitol Hill and Mrs. Abelia is taking a grilling. We'll be right back on the future of Obamacare after this.